A drawer lock bit is a really great way to put drawers together, just in general to put corners together. But I know this is a cutter that makes smoke come out of a lot of woodworkers' ears. So let me take you through the setup on this. Once you get the hang of it, it is a really great way to make corners. First thing we'll do is get that bit in the table. And I gotta say, boy, is it handy to have a router lift. It's like having an elevator in your router table. And when I can just bring the collet up like this, it sure makes it easy to get bits in and out, of course, with the router unplugged. The router lift is going to pay off as we go through this process because the difference between a good fit and not such a good fit are really small parts of an inch. So the router lift is really going to let us micro adjust. Now here's our first micro adjust. I've got a line on my board that's approximately 2/3 the thickness of my material. And that's going to be my starting point for the height of the cutter. Let's go right about there. And what's going to happen is this is just going to get us close, and then test cuts are going to tell us exactly what we need. With router lifts, it's pretty common that a full revolution of the handle is 1/16 of an inch of travel. So it really lets you fine tune things, of course, then a quarter turn is only 1/64 of an inch. It's a really good way to finesse stuff together here. Now, on the fence location, I'm going to use some setup bars. Because here what I want is for the tip of that cutter to project half the thickness of my material past the face of the fence. So first step, let's bring those fence faces in just a little bit closer. Now, using my bar, 1/2 inch stock, I'm going to bring that in until the bit projects 1/4 inch past the face of the fence. Then lock the fence in place. And again, test cuts are going to tell us if this is right or wrong. Now with the drawer lock cutter, the way this works is that one of our cuts is made with our material face down on the table. The other cut is made with our material with its face against the fence. So we need to do that. We need to simulate the exact same setup. So we need to do that also as we're doing our test cuts. Now we can look at the joint, and based on symptoms, we can tell what correction we need to make, if any. So when we put this together, it's not going together. In other words, that tongue right there is too big to fit into the groove. Here's a way to think about this. The groove is always the same size because that's made by that part of the cutter. We can reduce the size of the tongue. Now think about the way this component was cut. It was on the table like this. The tongue needs to be smaller. As a result, my router bit needs to lower. This is where it's really nice to be able to finesse that height with our lift. So let's look at this again and see what it looks like. I'm going to say we need to lower, boy, not much because it almost goes together. We need to lower by, I'm going to try a 1/2 turn. The other thing we're looking at is this component. This edge needs to be out here flush with or slightly past this face. That's controlled by our fence position. So we need to move the fence back a little bit. We need to increase that depth of cut. We need to move the bit down a little bit so that we reduce the size of the tongue. I'm going to just pay attention to my index marks here on the table. Dial that down And second verse, same as the first. Going to mark the edges I've already looked at so I don't get confused in a little bit when I put parts together again. All right, let's have a look. Well, I went too far in both directions. So here's the deal. When I put this together now, it's a little bit too loose. The tongue is just a tiny bit too small. I got to raise my cutter. I'm going to come back up a quarter turn. When I look at this edge is too much past this face. So I took my fence a little bit too far back. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to correct my fence. I'm going to raise the cutter. I'm going to make another test cut, and we'll just continue through that test cut process until we get the fit that we need out of these boards. All right, the fit of the tongue is great. My fence position is still just a tiny bit off. Now, I very intentionally did an end grain cut here because that's how we're going to do drawers. And I want you to see that because I'm going to show you how to fix that. At this stage of the game, our bit height is correct. So here's what we can do. To eliminate this chipping, we're going to make what's called a zero clearance fence. Very, very simple to do. What I'm going to do is run the router bit. With the infeed side of my fence loose, I'm going to push that into the cutter. Now on my depth of cut, on my fence location setup, I need to back the fence off just the tiniest little bit. And then let's make that zero clearance fence to eliminate chipping. Now we have the fit that we want. What I'm looking for is a good fit between the tongue and the groove, a little bit of a lip here, because after glue up, I'll trim that off and make it look like I made it perfect right from the start. Now that we know that the fit is good, we're ready to run all our drawer box pieces. Here's the thing to keep in mind. When you do this part, pay attention to which component is which. And what happens is that as we run these parts, we want to pay attention to which are our drawer sides and which are the drawers front and back. So the way that the joint interlocks, it'll always be the drawer sides that feed vertically, and the drawer front and back will feed horizontally. I really love the way that the drawer lock comes together. Not only do we get mechanical grab between the components, but we also get additional glue surface. And you can see that once we get the setup right, boy, is it a fast way to make corners. It is very beneficial to have a router lift you can use for this because of that micro adjust that we need to do to get the height of the cutter just right. So check out drawer lock cutters. It's really a great way to make boxes.